Hi everyone, it's Earth Week. I've got my favorite green tea on to celebrate, and today I'm teaching you how to start your own vegetable plants from seed indoors. If you've never done this yourself before, this is the place for you. Stick around. Hey there, welcome to the channel. I'm Jenn. If you're new here, this is a Canadian YouTube channel that is all about taking your least and making the most out of it. A little bit about myself, just in case those of you who are watching are wondering, what authority do you have to teach us gardening, Jen? Are you just a home gardener? Do you really know what you're talking about? I did spend every summer throughout university working for a gardening company, a landscaping company, and I learned a lot. So, though I didn't go to school as a horticulturalist, I picked up a lot of knowledge along the way from the experts. And I include in my circle of experts my parents, my mom and dad. They are avid gardeners and they've taught me so much along the road. So most of what you're going to hear from me are from things I learned during that job in university and growing up under some great gardening green thumbs. If you are a newbie at this, if you have never started plants from seeds indoors, or maybe you have and you haven't had much success, this is the video for you. I'm going to simplify this process and I'm going to show you how you can do this in several different ways, because we all have different materials at home. We don't all have access to the same things. So I'm going to show you 3 different ways you can start plants from home. And it's a lot easier than you think. It's a lot simpler than you think. Before we start though, I feel we really need to address the elephant in the room in 2020. And that is that we're going through a crisis right now. That is that some of the materials I'm showing you may not be available for you to buy. If your hometown is like mine, your greenhouses and gardening centers have been shut down and declared non-essential services. I could not disagree more with the decision to declare gardening centers non-essential. I feel of any businesses, gardening centers are essential. But if you find yourself in the place where nothing around you is open, I wanted to let you know that everything I'm talking about today, all the different products, I'm going to do some research and make some Amazon affiliate links below that you can go online and purchase them for yourself. If you've never used an Amazon affiliate link before, it's super easy. Basically, it's just a portal I have set up to the product that I'm recommending. And you can still use all your Amazon Prime benefits, everything like that. It's just a way that I can direct you to the products I think are really worth your time and investment. And in turn, by buying it through that portal, nothing is different for you in terms of your benefits other than it helps my channel out. When you're starting your plants from seeds, there are a few things you need to research and know. Number 1 is you need to take into consideration where you live. If you're a Canadian like myself, I'm going to show you how you can find a great website that separates Canada up into different zones. So when I worked for a gardening center in university, it was drilled into me that I lived in Zone 5 in Canada. You can see Zone 5 on here, and there are different zones. I have family and friends who live in Zone 6, even more south than me, and I'm kind of jealous of them, of the things they can grow, like peach trees that I can't grow here. So you need to know your zone, because that's going to have an impact on what you can grow in your garden, and also it's going to have an impact on when you can plant things in your garden. Each zone has its own kind of last frost date and first frost date. So there are certain tender plants like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash that you do not want to plant in your garden until the risk of danger of the last frost is gone. A lot of plants, for example, tomatoes and pepper plants, need to be started indoors 6 to 8 weeks before the last possible frost. Cucumbers and squash, you're looking at planting those about 3 weeks before the last possible frost indoors. So because I am in Zone 5, I know that the last possible frost each year is usually around the end of May. Where I live, a lot of people swear by the May 2-4 thing. Okay, we can plant our garden on May 2-4, which is Victoria Day weekend or Memorial Day weekend if you're in the United States. May 2-4 works sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't. And this is why. Sometimes the May 24 weekend falls much earlier than May 24th on the calendar. Sometimes it falls on the 18th or 19th of May, and there may still be another frost headed your way if you're living in zone 5 or below. A great thing to do is to consult a farmer's almanac. I have a farmer's almanac that I like to flip through because it talks about the cycles of the moon and how important that is. So Canada's Algonquin population, which is our indigenous population who lived in the area kind of around New England all the way up to Lake Superior, they named the moons. And I love how they named the moons because it really gives you a hint as to when to plant. There's a harvest moon, there's a winter moon, there's a hunger moon. And the moon that is really important when it comes to figuring out when to plant your garden is the corn planting moon. It can also be called the full flower moon. The cycle of this moon, once it is completed itself, your danger of frost is likely over. So this year, the corn planting moon's cycle is not over until May 28th. So I'm not planning to plant most of my garden until after that date. And this leads me to a little nugget of information that my dad said over and over and over again when I was growing up. He said June 1st, June 1st, June 1st. He didn't know about the cycles of the moon. He didn't know about what the farmer's almanac said, but his dad had passed on to him, and his dad and his dad and his dad for many generations living in Canada now, that you're safe to plant June 1st or later. So those who are gung-ho and start their plants for their gardens indoors in like March, it's too soon. It's too soon. I'm sorry to say that. Unless you're planning on replanting all those plant starts into much larger pots, it's going to stress your plants out because they're gonna get leggy, they're gonna get root bound. So research when your last frost is, get out your calendar every year and make a little notation that that's when you wanna start your seeds. Okay, are you ready to start? First, you want to find a sunny window in your home. If you have heating lamps for growing plants inside, good for you. I certainly don't. I've never invested in anything like that. Maybe I will someday, but it has always worked like a charm to simply grow things near a sunny window. In our case, that's our southwest facing windows. Get yourself a table, something you can put your plants on. In our case, it's just our rickety old folding table that we've had since we got married, and then you can start working on planting. The first method of planting I wanted to talk to you about is using fiber pots. Inside of it's almost like its own mini greenhouse kit. It has a lid here. It's got, I'll just show you the little fiber pots inside. They're just little discs, if you can see what they look like here, and they will expand when you add water. So I'm going to show you how you would use something like this to do planting, and then I'm going to show you a different method that's maybe a little simpler for you. So this is the easy part. What you're going to do is simply take a pitcher of water, and you're going to gently pour it into your container. I say gentle because you don't want the fiber pots necessarily to be floating all over the place. So we're going to pour a good amount of water into there, and then we're going to let the fiber discs sit for 10 minutes. At the end of 10 minutes, they will have absorbed the amount of water they need for planting, and then if there's excess water left over, you can simply drain that excess water out before you plant your seeds. The next preparation method for soil for indoor planting is just use a cell pack. Beg some off your neighbors if you don't have any and your greenhouses are closed. So quite simply, you're going to take potting soil, if you've got some potting soil around, and you're just gonna fill your cell pack. You can use your hands. I am. And you really want to pack it in there because you will lose some soil in the watering. So in goes your potting soil. And then you want to put it in some sort of tray. In this case, I'm just using like a plasticky tray I have, or you can use terracotta, or you can use a 9x13 pan, whatever you have on hand, because you need something for it to drain out into. And you can obviously fit several cell packs in there. I could probably fit 3 on one tray. If you do not have potting soil, there are other options for you. You can create your own soil using just earth from the ground, combine it with some peat moss and black earth from your gardening center. But if you can't get your hands on even that, go outside and just get some dirt from your flower bed, from your garden, from anywhere in your yard. I just went out and swiped this from my garden. You can definitely start seeds from just regular soil, not potting soil. Potting soil has vermiculite in it. It's like a styrofoamy substance. It's not natural. So how do you think people started seeds in their houses before potting soil was an invention? Answer, they just used regular soil. So you can definitely just use regular soil. All it means is it likely won't hold the water as long as a potting soil would. So you may have to water more often. But yes, for thousands of years, people have been starting seeds in regular soil. So that's what you could do. So that's another option as well. And the third option I wanted to talk about today is, what if you don't have those little fibery pucks? What if you don't even have access to a cell pack? Well, this is easy. You don't have to have your plants separated into tiny little cells if you don't want to. You can simply take your potting soil or your dirt, put it into a deep dish container, plant your seeds in there, separated by several inches each, and grow it that way. Then when you go to transfer them to your garden, you just have to carefully use your fingers to get each one out. It's okay if the roots are entangled a little bit, you can totally still transplant them that way. Okay, next we want to talk about what you're going to plant. You need to check the back of your seed packets and see where this plant can grow. Can it even grow where you live? If it can, you're good to go. If you haven't already watched my first Canadian prepper video, I'll link that too, because I go into a bit of detail there about a seed vault that I purchased for an emergency just such as this one in 2020. But I wanted to show you what I was planting this year. So first, I'm going to be planting a whole lot of Roma tomatoes. So here they are. Roma tomatoes are perfect for salsa and pasta sauce, basically anything that you don't want a really juicy tomato for. So I'm going to be planting at least a dozen Roma tomato plants. The other tomato plant I'm planting is just a regular beefsteak tomato. These are good and juicy, perfect for toasted tomato sandwiches, perfect for just slicing up for a hamburger in the summer. And then one of my very favorite type of just a real sweet, juicy tomato is Bonnie Best. So Bonnie Best is smaller than a beefsteak, but I love Bonnie Best tomatoes. I especially love in the summer to chop them up and roast them in the oven to put with pasta. So delicious. But the beefsteak and the Bonnie Best, I probably won't have as many plants for, probably about 8 each. I'm giving you amounts based on my family of 8 and what I use for canning and preserving and eating throughout the summer. If you have a smaller family or just 1 or 2 of you at home, obviously you wouldn't need this many tomato plants. You're not going to need, what's 12 plus 16? You're not gonna need 28 tomato plants. But we do at our house. That's a minimum. Some years we've planted many more. And for peppers, I have a bunch of different kinds. First, I have 2 types of hot peppers. So I'm going to be planting jalapeno peppers, and I'm going to be planting a Hungarian yellow wax. That's a hot pepper. My husband uses these for salsa, and myself, I make the salsa as well. He also just cans them, packs them in oil, and he'll slice them up and eat them all winter long. And then our sweet peppers that we'll be planting today. So I have California Wonder, a green pepper, and I have a Hungarian yellow sweet banana pepper and a red pepper. So again, I use these in lots of different recipes. If you're a pepper fan, some years it's hit or miss in this zone in Canada how well your peppers can actually do, but I like to get them started and plant them anyway. Some years we have a bumper crop, so it just depends on the year. As I mentioned before, we are going to wait and plant our squash. So that's our zucchini, acorn squash, spaghetti squash, butternut squash, and our cucumbers. We're gonna wait to plant those until May, until at least 3 weeks before the last frost. So probably the 1st or 2nd week of May is when I'm going to start those. So I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up, but as you can see, it's been 10 minutes and my little fiber discs have expanded from very small to very big, okay? So they've probably, I would say they quadrupled in size at least, and there's no water left in the bottom after I've left them for 10 minutes. So they're ready for me to plant. I did want to mention that your cell packs, after you have put the soil in them, you should also water them before you put your seeds in. Same with just my dish of soil back here. I'm going to add water to it and get things nice and moist before I put my seeds in. The next thing, which is of utmost importance, is to make labels for your seeds. You want to know which ones were the hot peppers and which ones were the sweet peppers when you're putting them in these cell packs. So you can see I've just taken popsicle sticks and written on them in Sharpie. So you can see I've just written on my popsicle sticks. This one's for the beefsteak tomatoes, and I've just written the variety of what I'm planting, and I'm gonna pop those in the cell packs before I put the seeds in. Okay, I've got all of my pots labeled, ready to plant. The next thing is seeds, the fun part. The thing you need to know about planting your seeds is that you need to plant not one, but 2 seeds in every little cell pack or pot that you're doing. Why? Because what if one seed doesn't germinate? You want to be extra careful, so you're going to plant 2 seeds for every 1 plant you want. And then once the plants start to come up, if you get 2 plants coming up in each pot, that's great. You can thin them out. So take a plant out and just toss it if you want, or replant it in another pot, whatever you'd like to do. But you're gonna thin it out at that point, and then you'll have 1 healthy plant per pot. When you're putting your seeds in, follow the directions on the back of your seed packet. A lot of times it'll say 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch below the soil. Because we've already watered our soil, we are not going to water it again after we put the seeds in, because this will drown the seeds. So we're just going to plant it in and leave it. And the very last step we're going to do here is to try to create a greenhouse effect. This step is only necessary until your seeds germinate and for about the first week after, when your plants are really, really tiny. I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can create a greenhouse effect at home. The first way is very simple. It's to put a lid on it. So this came with a plastic lid. Now, I had my popsicle sticks sticking up here, and then I thought, oh right, I can't actually have them sticking up out of it until I can take my greenhouse effect off. So I have it laying beside each so that I can see clearly which plants are which. So you simply put it on, and you only take this lid off while it's germinating in order to water. And to be honest with you, it's really probably not even going to need watering, because it's going to create so much moisture. It's not probably going to need watering for maybe even a week or 2. But what if you don't have a kind of fancy at-home greenhouse kit like this with a plastic lid? And what if you just put it in a container like this? Simple. Do you have a glass pie plate? This will create a greenhouse effect for you. You can just kind of balance it on your pot there, and all my plants are planted in here, and that's going to create a beautiful greenhouse for me. And the third method is saran wrap. So you're going to take a piece of saran wrap, and around each cell pack, you're simply going to place it around it like so. If you like, you can take an elastic band and fit that around it too, and that will help hold the plastic in place. It'll help keep little kids' fingers from taking your plastic off. And there you go, we created a little mini greenhouse. Now, as I mentioned before, you are only going to create a greenhouse effect until your plants have germinated. That means you can see green coming up, until they get about, maybe 1/2 inch high. And then you're going to remove the greenhouse tops, and you are not going to use them again, because your plants are getting higher and higher, and that wouldn't work. And a little note about watering. Once your plants have established themselves and really started to grow, you want to keep an eye on the watering, but please do not overwater. That is how most people kill their plants, either by underwatering or overwatering. The way you check to see if it needs watering is not by the top of the soil. The top of the soil often looks dry, but then when you stick your finger in there, it's quite wet below. So make sure the soil is actually dry. You don't want it bone dry before you think to water it. And if you have a little greenhouse kit like mine, it's super super easy because it kind of self-waters. You put water in the bottom and the plants will take water as they need them. Okay, and that is how we do it. I hope you all enjoyed watching that. I certainly had a lot of fun doing my planting. As I mentioned already, I've got you covered for products below if you'd like to take a look. And let me know in the comments what you find hard about gardening. What are your questions about gardening? What have you found that works? I can't wait to see you guys in my next gardening video. Happy Earth Week, everyone. For the least, this is Jen.